his tape that America is filled with fear, millions must have wanted to say no. But there is no doubt that what happened a month ago goes beyond massive death and destruction, beyond human and economic loss. What we have also lost, at least for now, is that traditional American sense of ease. Just consider what's happened in the past week or so. October 2nd, concrete barriers surround Chicago's Sears Tower after a false report of a terrorist attack. The next day, Greyhound shuts down its entire bus service after a passenger slashes a driver. 6 die in the crash. The day after that, a Russian airliner from Tel Aviv to Siberia explodes over the Black Sea. An accident? An attack? Yesterday, an American Airlines jet is escorted to Chicago's O'Hare Airport by 2 F-16 fighter jets after a mentally ill passenger rushes the cockpit. Also yesterday, Florida health officials say the anthrax exposure that killed a Florida man may well have been deliberate. Today, 3 metro rail stations in Washington, D.C. were shut down after reports that a passenger sprayed an unidentified liquid during a struggle with a police officer. That liquid is now suspected of being a cleaning solution. So what is all this doing to America's traditional sense of confidence and strength? Are there specific things the government needs to do, that we need to know and that we need to do? With us again from Washington, Senators John Kerry and Chuck Hagel. Senator Hagel, if every mentally ill airline passenger or every outraged airline passenger can bring an airplane back to an airport under F-16 escort, if a false rumor can shut down a metropolitan subway system, you can begin to see this cost. I don't even know how we can calculate it. I mean, it seems to me that you could say that is in some ways as serious as what happened on September 11th. I mean, are you concerned with the long-term impact on the United States of that kind of behavior?
Well, of course, we all are, Jeff. But it seems to me we need to put a couple of things in perspective. One is the shock, the reality, the rawness of what happened just 4 weeks ago today is obviously still with us. And that means that it is with us cerebrally, intellectually, subconsciously. That high state of alert and concern has all of us and all of our institutions on a state of alert and an edge that we normally don't have, nor is natural. We will find our center of gravity here. We will get our institutions in place, our populations, our civilization, as we know it, will start to adjust. Doesn't mean we give up liberties, but there's no question we're going to have to make some changes in policy, in law enforcement, in everything we do, in our immigration laws, in our foreign policy, our sanctions, our trade, everything. And we'll get that back to a point where there is some perspective and some balance. Yes, we're concerned, we all are, when we see these kinds of reactions, but I think it's fairly natural.
But Senator Kerry, it occurs to me that you and your colleagues in Washington, you get a problem defined and you can pass a piece of legislation to try to fix it. There's an environment's threatened, you can pass a regulation. People are suffering, lack of civil rights, you can put in federal troops. This one is a dilemma that is literally in the minds and the spirits of 280 million people. What has the government what can the government do about that kind of crisis?
Well, Jeff, let me first of all, we can make a lot of decisions correctly and remain united in our collective will to respond to this, and we can offer the leadership that the nation needs and wants. The world now understands. They're not denying guilt. They're not suggesting that this is a conspiracy of the United States against them. They are not, there were great rumors all across the Arab world that Israel was behind this previously. So all of the Arab world, particularly the legitimate Muslim world, should take note that they are essentially accepting guilt and promising more. That puts completely to rest the notion of anyone else, of Israel or anything else. And so the legitimate Muslim community has to now join in this global effort.
But forgive me, Senator, but how does that help Americans?
Well, I'm going to come back to that. I want to come back. I thought it was very important, Jeff. I'm not trying to, I think it's really important, though, to make that point. because that offers us, I think, a unity globally that ought to give a sense of confidence to the American people about where we're heading. Now, the second thing is, there's a lot we can do. We can do the airport security and make it, as strong as it possibly can be. Travel security. There's much that we can do as we go forward in immigration, in the knowledge of who our neighbors are, in communities to be stronger, in strengthening our healthcare response to any kind of crisis, and give people a sense of confidence about this. I think in addition to that, there is a real distinction, Jeff, between a sense of unease, as you've described it, and confidence about the ultimate outcome. I think Chuck and I and others have a great sense of confidence about the ultimate outcome, but we're going to have to go through some tough transitions here. We're going to have to face some perhaps difficult moments.
One of the, I'm sorry, Senator.
No, go ahead.
No, I just want to, because the time is short, I wanted to ask Senator Hagel, one of the reasons we invited both you and John Kerry here is that you've both experienced danger in a much more direct way than, God willing, most of us will ever know. In terms of the front lines coming home, what can you tell us about emotionally surviving the front lines? Senator Hagel?
One of the things it does, and I think to each of us, and I think each American, probably each citizen of the world community, part of the world that appreciates the dignity of man, is going through a self-analysis, a self-inventory. What's important in your life? What do you think is most important about who you are, your family, others? That's the first response, reaction, at least I saw when I came home from Vietnam. I think others did, and I think America is going through that right now. And we will find that, and that's good. I think that's very good. Sorry we had to go through what we had to go through to get there, but history is rather complete with these kinds of things. They come once or twice every 100 years. That's what's happening.
Senator Kerry, when you hear people say, I'm stocking up on Cipro, when you know about people of great means saying, I got my private jet parked on the runway, I'm getting in shape so I can run down flights of stairs, which literally a couple of people are saying, what's your response to that kind of an attempt to privatize security?
Well, I think individuals are obviously going to respond that way. That historically has always been true in every kind of crisis, Jeff. In every war, certain people with certain access and certain means have, quote, taken care of themselves. But I think the lessons of most of these confrontations are the kind of lessons we learned in the streets of New York. Firefighters rushing into a building, police officers giving their lives, countless numbers of volunteers coming forward, untold millions of dollars raised to help victims and respond. And I think if you look back across the history of our nation and other countries that have been under siege, look at the Blitz in Britain, look at the difficulties Jews went through in the Holocaust and all through Europe and in history. I mean, if you read the tea leaves of history, they tell you that there is an incredible reserve of strength in citizens everywhere. The folks who founded this country, the difficulties of what I've just been reading John Adams, as many of us have this summer, and you see the despair in the founding fathers at one period of time as they lost battle after battle, and George Washington was driven away from New York and our objectives, but they stayed at it. They understood there was a larger goal. Every American understands that goal here, and I believe we will ultimately persevere because of that, and because of our just the fundamentals of who we are.
Thank you very much, Senator John Kerry. Thank you very much, Senator Chuck Hagel. My thanks to both of you. When we come back, we're going to hear from Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist and author Bill Broad on what to fear, or maybe not fear, from that anthrax story in a minute.